try and refocus then, should we talk about Daenerys?
Sure. That's the big one.
So, opening statements?
So,
right.
okay.
You go.
Someone else.
Go for it. You go.
Me? Okay.
Hey, you.
Daenerys's story is sort of about how we can rationalize and support tyrannical methods when they're being leveled against systems that we deem abhorrent. And then when we change our perspective and we see those same methods being leveled against a system which we have more empathy for, they start to actually look like tyranny. So I think in that regards, the area that people are wrong about is that, Daenerys turns. She changes completely in the last. It's like, no, Daenerys just was who she always was. It's just that the system is different.
I think that's what they wanted, but they didn't get there, because Daenerys, it doesn't, like, this you might call this a logistical argument. What the hell is she doing killing a bunch of screaming civilians when her only issue is Cersei?
I would not call that logistical, no. But are you asking?
So what I'm referring to is, like, the mapping out King's Landing. She, like, lawnmowers her way to Cersei. Why?
Well, her issue wasn't just Cersei. I think you have to look at Daenerys and think, well, what has her experience been conquering people and then ruling? When she takes Meereen, the people rise up because they agree with her cause, and they're like, all right, we're with you. We also want to be free, so let's make Daenerys our queen. And so then they take the city. Daenerys is made queen. And then, despite all that, all these people come in and they're like, well, she's not our queen and she's not from here. And they start a movement against her. So then she has to deal with that. In Westeros, she has this issue where she's being rejected by everyone, right? Like in the North, they're rejecting her. In King's Landing, they're rejecting it. Like the common people don't want Queen Daenerys because there's no class consciousness. There's no sense that what Daenerys is selling, we want to buy. She just doesn't have her ear to the ground on what this society wants, like she did in Slaver's Bay. So what she's doing when she's basically trying to bypass that issue. Like, no, I'm going to rule through fear. And when you rule through fear, oftentimes in like medieval, like feudal societies, like, yeah, it means showing that you can kill civilians with impunity, because if you can do that, you are the top dog. You're the lord, you're the king, you're the queen. I mean, feudalism is just a mafia protection racket.
I don't know. I think living in a castle with a dragon at your beck and call would do that just fine instead of killing tens of thousands of innocent people.
Rags, you're wrong. Literally just under like 1 million.
Oh.
Well, goodness. We don't ever get the number, but...
An insane amount, I think it would be safe to say.
I mean, you saw the wreckage, right, Rags? So the
just
population of King's Landing is 1 million.
Going around the city, zigzagging, as if the purpose was to try and kill as many innocent people as possible. Like, as she was doing it as if that was the goal, while ignoring the castle, which was interesting.
Right there.
She didn't totally ignore it. She fucked up that castle. But I think that was
she got there eventually. Yeah.
Yeah. Eventually,
the goal was to instill fear and essentially show herself as someone that you do not want to cross. Like, don't try and rebel against me. Don't try and replace me with Jon Snow. That was her goal.
And she was immediately assassinated
by the person she thought would not assassinate her. Yes.
Interesting how that works.
Interesting how that works.
That all worked for you.
You know, it didn't work the first time around. it was an issue where like when I first saw it, I'm like, no, this isn't. And then I went back and I like sort of rewatched the show. Not the whole show, but I rewatched certain episodes and like certain parts of it. And my perception of who Daenerys was really changed on a second watch. Like I really saw things that I hadn't really noticed before. And saw that like, actually, yeah, this person is, first of all, kind of crazy. Like people say she went crazy. I know she walked into a funeral pyre. That's crazy.
Well, she had confirmation that fire doesn't burn her up to that point. So
yeah, it's
she's never been
crazy.
She's never been in fire. She's been in hot things. She's never touched fire.
Well, the second she walks into it and doesn't burn, I think that's confirmation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, at that
I think
point,
if it actually started to burn her, she wouldn't have just stayed there.
I mean, she set up an entire like ritual with the dragons.
Oh,
she was like, "I'm gonna go in."
If she had started walking into the fire and it burned her, do you think she would say nothing and continue walking? Like
I think it's
even Miri Mazdur is like, "You're not going to hear me scream."
You don't have to be a doctor, mate.
Right? No, I'm. It's a joke. I'm not a doctor, but I tend to think that if people are burning, they will naturally move away from the thing like immediately. You just naturally go away. So like, yeah, of course, I think that if it started burning her, she would move away. But I think a crazy person would do that too, because your physical impulses would take over.
Is there anything that anyone could do that couldn't be justified by saying they were crazy?
Yes, but it's not just crazy, right? Or I don't. Sorry if that question was.
Could you give me an example?
I don't know what.
Something that
let me explain this, and maybe I think this will answer your question. It's not just crazy, right? It's not just like it's that this person is willing to go to certain extremes to pursue what they believe is right. Like people are like, oh, well, Daenerys never punches down. It's like, actually, she has. And people are like, oh, Daenerys never tortures people. Yes, she does. Daenerys never harms the innocent. She does actually. Like all of those things, like she has done before. Like everything. What she does in King's Landing, huh?
Focus on that third one.
Oh, sure. Which was the third one?
So, let's just go through the innocents she's killed, or let's say murdered. Has she murdered any innocents?
Well, when I said innocent, I mean someone who is not guilty.
Sure.
Yes.
In season 5, she feeds a man to her dragon to send a message.
But she's under the impression that he is a man that's a part of a group that's destroying the city. She's
not under. She thinks that. Well, she's like, I don't know who's part of it. I'm going to gather up all the leaders of Marine, bring them here, and I don't know which one of you is guilty and which one of you is innocent. It turns out all of the financiers of the Sons of the Harpy were from other slave cities. But anyway, she's like, well, it's probably one of you guys. I'm going to pick a random one, feed him to a dragon.
Yeah. I mean, were they slavers as well?
So that doesn't sound crazy.
They had been slavers, yes.
Yeah, there's a rationale there, and it's all in favor of dominating with a peaceful society for the people who live there. Like that's her end goal. She's trying to prevent Sons of the Harpy from causing insane chaos in her city.
So let's talk about rationale, because remember earlier I mentioned Walter White. Here it's actually way more applicable. Yes, there is a rationale there, and when I saw it, I was like, even though that guy might not have been guilty, I'm okay with this. Because, like, fuck him. He was a slaver, right?
I'm not going that far. I'm not saying she was morally right. I'm saying that from her perspective, what she's doing is for the greater good.
But, like, we feel that impulse, right? But when you look at, or maybe like, the audience, I think, is meant to, like, kind of understand.
It's a grisly scene. Like,
it is grisly. But when you think about it, like, did she do it just to send a message, or did she just do it because she was fed up? This was right after Barris and Selmy died, and you see when she's doing it, she actually enjoys. Like it's kind of like a cruel and unusual thing to enjoy that kind of suffering on other people, but in a lot of cases, Daenerys does. Like if you look at her face when she burns people, there's like a weird
Like Arya when she
satisfaction.
kills Walder Frey.
Yes, like as I was saying before, like they didn't
Is Arya crazy?
didn't explore that.
Like Sansa when she kills Ramsay.
Yes. Again, that was also in my Reddit post from the other day. Like they didn't really explore those well enough. Although I will say there's a bit of a difference between like, well, with Sansa's like this is a person who has specifically hurt me. Like this is like a person who has tortured me, and I know they're guilty. With Daenerys, it's often and it's with people who have not.
You just expressed that you actually felt like a sort of fuck yeah for her to kill that guy. Does that make you crazy?
I'm exaggerating. I would never actually do anything like that. Or I would never like support. But you know, like here's the thing. There's a good question, actually. Maybe
You don't know?
who knows? No,
I'm asking you.
I hope not. But so
You can't definitively say you aren't crazy? You can't say that with confidence?
It's subjective, maybe. I don't know.
it's
Like
subjective,
really?
I don't know.
You do believe you're not crazy, right?
I do believe I'm not crazy, but I feel like
All
crazy
right.
people think
It's
the same
good
thing.
it's good to get a confirmation that's what you think. All right.
Right. Anyway, so with Daenerys, okay, well, let's take another example. Joffrey executes Sansa's father and then forces her to be engaged to him for political reasons, right? Because it's like, I need this to sustain my political dominance over this country. Well, really, Cersei tells him to do that.
Well, marry her, you'll get Winterfell if the Starkmen are killed.
Yes. Daenerys executes Hizdar's father and forces him to be engaged to her. That is a tyrannical thing to do, but she does it because she sees it as for the greater good.
Yeah, but so you remember Daenerys kills the father without understanding the context of who the father is, while Joffrey kills Ned Stark, who's possibly one of the most respected and altruistic characters in Westeros.
Joffrey, well, first of all, I'm not saying that Daenerys and Joffrey, absolutely not. Joffrey's far more sadistic, has no morals or like sense of justice or whatever. But from Joffrey's perspective, Ned Stark is saying that he is illegitimate and he does not know himself.
Oh yeah, Joffrey's got a rationale. Not
Yeah,
like
he's got a
Ramsay.
rational.
Like Ramsay's rationale is I like causing pain. Joffrey actually.
Daenerys, yeah.
Those are clear.
So Daenerys, the thing is, Daenerys might like causing pain more than we realize. Is part of what I'm getting at. So when Daenerys takes Meereen, Barristan Selmy tells her, "Hey, look, give them a trial. Like, show them a better way. Trial is important. We need to like establish a system of rules and justice." And she's like, and he's like, you know, be merciful. And Daenerys is like, no, I'm going to be just. And so she just decides that, like, well, these are slavers, and I am going to crucify all of the slavers because they crucified children, eye for an eye. Yeah. So you could say that, yeah, she didn't know that Hizdar's father was innocent of the crucifixions. Maybe Hizdar was lying. Maybe the thing is, we never know because we never get a trial.
Maybe she shows like instant remorse when she realizes that, when he says it, whether or not he's lying.
She does show
she just has to believe
debatable.
It's true
There's a sense that maybe she questions her actions, but
that's what remorse is.
Remember her face when one collateral damaged little person is killed?
Yeah, she locks up her dragons.
I do remember that. I mean, I'm
enjoying pain there, huh?
She enjoys pain sometimes. She doesn't enjoy pain other times. She sees these people as her people because they have chosen her, right?
As
these
for
people
eye for an
are her, like these people are not her enemies. When by the time she's in King's Landing, she sort of sees the common people as her enemies because they are not rising up like the people of Meereen did. They have not accepted her. It was the same in the North. Like, remember in like the opening shots to season 8, like.
Well, may I ask how the people of King's Landing rose up against her?
Oh no, I'm saying that they didn't maybe I misspoke. They didn't rise up for her.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There is a piece of dialogue where she says the people of Meereen basically did it for her. She didn't really have to do a lot, and then Tyrion is like, they can't do it in King's Landing because Cersei will kill their families if they were to do something like that. And the conversation doesn't really develop into a conclusion of a rationale. You can desperately see D&D trying to shoehorn in these sorts of like, hey, they're not being that great, the people of King's Landing. Maybe they deserve to be massacred. I don't know. They're not doing great. They're not doing great right now.
Here's the thing, though. It's like we say it's done, but this has been set up for a long time. Like, Daenerys has threatened to burn cities multiple times in the story.
Threatening to and doing is
but that's the thing. That's how like tyranny sort of works. Like you get the threats and people on the side of the tyrant, like they're never going to do that, and then they start doing it.
Because most people can draw clear distinctions between a threat to do something. Oftentimes, threats are empty; they're just meant to, further a goal. And the actual execution of a threat, and the execution of that threat to a ridiculous point.
But who else is making those kinds of threats? Cersei, good example. Is Cersei the kind of person we want to say Daenerys is?
World leaders, rulers will do this in medieval times. Why would they not? They're trying to rule. So, what is your point? That the threat of...
I think those threats are meaningful, and they say things about how her rationale works. And what she believes.
I would never defend Daenerys as I wouldn't want to be friends with her. Like, she kind of annoys me. I said this in my video. I'm not a fan of her, but she is well written, as far as I'm concerned, up to season 8. She's very consistent. She will obliterate people. She will feed them to a dragon. She'll burn them to death. She'll never do it to somebody she considers innocent. All of the people in King's Landing have done nothing.
The thing. She didn't consider those people innocent anymore.
Which is ridiculous. The rationale is not
really
there.
Ridiculous to me.
Stretch, and
they're literal children. That's the one thing she says. She will never hurt children, and she never wants to see a child at her feet ever again.
So she threatens to burn cities. Did you think that those cities didn't have innocent? But why is she threatening to do it?
Because threats get powerful without you having to do things. That's the point of a threat.
Which actually doubles up.
Not just outside of Karth, where she's like, again, you can make it's like, again, it's like rationalizing. Outside of Karth,
but do you not get what a threat is? Like the point of a threat,
right? Let me finish. Outside of Karth, yeah, you can say, oh well, she's starving. Her people are starving. She's threatening to like try and get these people to let her in, right? Later, she's making the threats to Tyrion. Like she's not saying them to anyone. She's not saying them to the slavers that she's going to burn their. She's like, I'm going to listen up, Tyrion. I'm going to burn their cities to the. Like Tyrion's not. He's on her side. Like again, there's an escalation to this. Like, if the idea of threats is that
this is why
it's a bluff to get things to change. Like she's not bluffing to Tyrion.
This is what Gary was saying about how like we can actually all see how we get there in the end, but they've skipped so many chapters. They've skipped over loads of developing points. We've jumped way too fast.
Yeah,
the idea of using a threat to avoid violence isn't foreshadowing for holy shit, she actually did it.
Right, but what I'm saying is that when she says it to Tyrion, it's not a threat to avoid violence.
So I don't know
which conversation are you talking about specifically.
Well, I'm talking about with Tyrion specifically. I'm talking about season 6, episode 9. She shows back up to Meereen, and then he's like, "What are we gonna do? Whatever." And she's like, "I'm gonna return the slavers' cities to the dirt." Something along those lines.
Yeah.
Burn their fleets and return their cities to the dirt. So, and then Tyrion's like, "No, here's this thing about your dad. Let's try a different way." And then also, like, if you want to keep going with it, like, and again, this was to Tyrion. This wasn't to avoid violence. She was workshopping a plan with Tyrion. Again with Tyrion in season 7.
Well, then that's not a threat. That's a promise.
I don't know if I would call it a promise. Like
she's saying she is going to do something, threats involve, if you do something, I will do this. That's a threat. If you're threatening to do something, a threat is not a committal.
Sure, I'm okay with this.
In fact, threats are often virtuous things to do.
Sure, I don't know if threats are virtuous things to do.
Of course, if you don't do
It can
this, we
be.
will invade you. You are
Right,
using the threat to avoid the open conflict.
Right,
That's
like,
virtuous.
if that's the intent. But with Tyrion, she's not doing it for that reason. She's actually considering it. And again, in season 7, she says, like, well, what war was won without deceit and mass murder? Like, she is buying into that system. And that's the thing, is that Daenerys...
So you're referencing a lot of pieces of dialogue about potentials, while we've been referencing, like, actual actions and reactions as...
I've referenced actual actions, like, you know, when she forces the dude to be engaged to her, when she feeds the guy to her dragon.
It's motivated entirely for greater good.
All the people. What?
Motivated entirely by the greater good.
But that's what I'm saying about rationale. Like, we say, oh, it's for the greater good. Like, for the greater good.
We want an example of when she's done something maliciously / insane.
What could you be more specific?
Has she ever murdered someone who is innocent? Answer is no.
Innocent by whose metric?
Hers.
She has never done that, even in season 8. She does not see those people as innocent. She sees what she did for the greater good. There's a conversation between Daenerys and Hizdahr in season 5, right before the Sons of the Harpy thing show up. They show up to the dragon pit, and she's talking about how one day she might return his great city to the dirt as well. And she's like, by your command, and she's like, yeah. And these people are... Because she's saying, like, the fighting pit tradition is abhorrent, which I agree with. But she's saying, like, this form of, like, violence is wrong. And he's like, well, they're choosing to do this. And again, Hizdahr is a piece of shit, but he's saying, well, they're choosing to do this. Why are their reasons wrong and yours are correct?
I hate to do this to you. I'm going to cite you the episode. Necessary. Have you been down there? Have you seen children, little children burned? I tried to make peace with Cersei. She used their innocence as a weapon against me.
Yeah.
She killed innocent people. She murdered innocent people in that episode where she has never done it before.
Again, by whose metric?
Hers.
Again, in her, like, rationale, like...
She literally
I guess
says
that might
they're
be...
innocent.
She does kind of say that, yeah.
She does kind of say that.
One of the examples
sort of
you're
does.
using is she has a conversation with Hizdahr, abhorrent the slave fighting is in Marine. So I'm supposed to that within a season of time that she just turns like this.
Sorry,
okay, so
which conversation are you having? Are you talking about?
When you were talking about her conversation with Hizdahr, it was around during the God damn it, sorry, during the slave fights. Okay, so she doesn't like all the fighting that they have, which has been how they kept peace in Marine for years. And you know, the gladiators, and they enjoy it, and she finds that abhorrent. But and how many seasons did we spend in Marine? Was it 4, 5?
Well, we spent season 4, or half of 4, 5.
After Young Kai, she goes to Marine, so we're 2.5 seasons.
Yeah,
in Marine. Story up, which is basically her learning how to be queen, and learning on the job, making huge mistakes. We're buying into this. A lot of it was believable. I agree with Mahler. She was like one of the most consistently written characters, even in the bad seasons. But then she just makes this turn on a dime because they didn't set it up properly. That's all I've ever been saying. Again, the conclusion, I can see them getting to that conclusion. It required 2 more seasons. It required her being in Westeros much longer, dealing with more lords. There wasn't any of that. It felt empty. Season 8, she had, and I know that the writers will say it was supposed to be this way, but I didn't buy it. I personally didn't buy it. She felt like we killed Varys too early, and it just felt like a smaller show because they were rushing towards the end. They were just trying to play connect the dots towards the end, and none of this stuff sold to a lot of people, including myself. And we can go back and said, well, she smirked when this person died, so see, psycho. Of course she's going to burn, a million people in King's Landing. No, it doesn't make sense at all when she could have just taken a straight shot to the castle, killed Cersei, and been queen. And she had the Dothraki there. They multiplied somehow, and she didn't. That's the whole thing. Is not a lot of people bought her just mass executing a bunch of people.
So on this subject, one thing you talk about, like smirking, and this is actually like a really important. It's actually a really important part of the story, is that when we see Daenerys, we're like, oh, everything she's doing is for the greater good. We're rationalizing that this is actually what drives a person: is logic, is rationale,
we're just acknowledging her rationale,
is objective, factual reality. When really, like, a person's like drive, there's all sorts of other drives that actually like drive a person. So, for example, like when she feeds the guy to a dragon, the rationale is that she's sending a message. But
it was very good in the beginning at doing that, and it stopped being good later at doing that.
I think it was still good at doing that. Like at the end, the rationale is that that Cersei is like, she needs to free future generations from Cersei, right? That's the rationale. But
what future generations?
Yeah.
I mean, King's Landing is
I'm sure
she
some
obliterated 90% of the future generations. Come on.
I mean, we see the pier later. There is still people.
There is still people. You're right.
Didn't kill all of them.
But that's the rationale. But is that the reality? Like, is that real? Like, Daenerys really? Is that really what's driving her? Like, she seems to also have this. There's this entire like personal, like emotional component to what she's doing, as is with anyone. Like, for her, a lot of it is about taking back this thing that's supposed to belong to her and her family. A lot of it is revenge for the people close to her that have been killed by Cersei and that have been killed in this war. And a lot of it is just like, again, the enjoyment she gets from burning people, from destroying her enemies.
Did she enjoy doing that at King's Landing?
I get the sense that on some level there was catharsis.
There's a lot of assumption here.
Yeah.
Well, we don't see, I'm trying to be like, trying not to make too many jumps. So I'm saying, like, what I presume, because we don't see her, she never says, but what I assume is that there's like a catharsis there.
May I ask why that is your assumption?
Why do I assume that? Because I think she gets catharsis from killing her enemies in a lot of cases. Everyone from Mirri Maz Duur to the Tarleys. And also, like, when Barristan Selmy talks about the Mad King, like, what does he talk about? The feeling of like the sort of the self-righteous feeling that he got from burning people alive.
So you would say that Daenerys considers the innocent people, by her own words, the innocent people of King's Landing, to be her enemy that deserve death?
Yes. In some respects. I think something that a lot of people maybe don't fully like accept about the story is that a lot of these characters are not morally or ethically or logically consistent. For example, when you look at who Daenerys is working with when she invades Westeros, Ilaria Sand is a child murderer.
Yep, that's brought
right.
up.
So
he recommends to storm the city, and then Tyrion says, "We don't murder little girls here." That's in the board meeting with Daenerys at the head of it, and she says that they're all going to have to respect Tyrion.
Yes.
What I'm trying to suggest here is she doesn't take the word of the child murderer.
but she allies with the child murderer. Like
Reinforcements are reinforcements.
There was a pragmatic reality to the situation.
Sure, but like again, like look at how she punishes the slavers and how she sort of like, or the former slavers. Like after she abolishes slavery, like, again, the rationale of like, oh well, she fed that guy to a dragon. He used to be a slaver. Like, well, Jorah used to sell slaves.
Yeah, what happened to him in the storyline? Well, he's obviously like, redeemed himself before she can essentially
how is he redeemed? How has he redeemed himself for selling slaves?
Her. Do I have to answer that question? Really? What has Jorah done for Dany?
No, I don't mean by the end. I mean like right when she meets him.
Oh, we don't know what she thinks of him at that point, that specific point. But once he's saved her life, which is what she's under the impression of in the with the wine merchant, he's pretty much redeemed his position.
What I'm saying is that like there's this premise that any slaver that Daenerys or any former slaver it's okay for Daenerys to execute them because they used to be a slaver.
Potentially. It depends on the law of the land and the context of the situation. Ned Stark wanted him executed for treason.
He did. Ned is one of the more ethically consistent characters. Not totally, but he's one of the more ethical characters. But with Daenerys, like...
I thought we were talking about rationale, though. Like you were saying, like we shouldn't be feeling as though it's justified with Daenerys, like even though the character is essentially looked at as the paragon in the show would have done the same thing.
No, I'm not saying that it's wrong to execute people for slavery if that's the law of the land. With Jorah, it's like that was the law.
Well, you do remember they're a part of a caravan or Khalasar, that is essentially runs on slavery at that point. She can't exactly say.
Daenerys herself used to own slaves.
Yeah, but she fights against it in the smallest ways possible that she can in season 1.
I don't agree that it's the smallest. The biggest way the smallest way she can. Yeah,
we will ask the guy who has not seen it. And you can object the second you think I'm representing the context incorrectly. So Rags, you are a woman who is 100% against slavery, but you've been captured.
No, that's just real.
You've been captured and given to this king to essentially be impregnated and provide a son for, while he essentially rapes and pillages throughout the land. And you decide that when several women are captured to essentially be raped and enslaved, that you'll take them
That's
for
not the whole context. Remember, Daenerys starts the campaign. She tells Drogo, we need to take the Iron Throne. And Drogo says no. And then there's an assassination attempt. And then Drogo is like, I am going to murder everybody. And I'm going to rape their women. And I'm going to tear down their houses. And she's like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, you're right. She does agree. And then when it happens, the difference between threats and actual action, what does she do?
She turns back on it. Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's very morally upstanding.
It's comparatively morally upstanding.
That's a good thing to do. It is a good thing to go back on a bad action.
It's a good thing to go back
in the story. It really does.
Look, I agree with all that, but you guys are saying it's a good thing to go back in a bad action. But there's a bad action.
You agree, right?
It's a good.
I do.
I wouldn't agree with Rags' statement. It's good to go back on a bad action. It wasn't an action in the first place. It was only the thought, the threat, the idea.
No, I think if I started like a campaign and they're like, hey, we're gonna and murder a bunch of people, and I'm like, cool, do it. And then later I see it and I'm like, oh no, stop. I think anyone who was offended or not offended, anyone who was victimized by that campaign has the right to take retribution against me because I started it. I set it into motion.
She's the only person who tries to stop it.
She is. And that's good. It's better than not trying to stop it. But you cannot say that she is not guilty of getting it started.
Season 1 is her most naive as well.
I agree. I'm not I mean,
that's the thing with the story is that here.
I feel like there's a sense
from that and grows from that. Then that seems like good.
It is. But I think there's a sense that people have is that characters can either be good or bad, and there's no again, something that George R. Martin says that he doesn't write clear-cut heroes and villains all the time. He likes to write characters that do a great thing on a Monday and then a horrible thing on a Thursday, and that's really how the story functions. Is that yes, Daenerys saves Miri Mazdur and the other women when she sees how they're being treated. But she also got it started, and she is in some ways like, she should consider that part of what she's done when judging other people.
Well, it is very easy for people when they say something should be done to imagine in their head the way that it will play out. And then upon seeing the reality of what they've done, immediately come to regret it. And then, as is a key component of redemption and apology, to take action in order to make right things that you had a hand in making wrong.
And for clarification, these people rape and pillage whether or not she said go to Westeros.
Yeah, but they really upped the ante when she said go to Westeros, because that's a big campaign.
According to Jorah, that's not even the case. They just move through town to town, and if they don't provide them slaves and women and resources, then they'll destroy them.
Yes, but that specific campaign, like Jorah says, that this is the cost of war. This is what we're doing. So this specific campaign, like the destruction of an entire like Lazarene, like that,
and she's immediately against it.
Yeah, again, I'm not saying that what Daenerys does there isn't redemptive. I'm saying that she should have that. I'm saying that if you're going to have that sort of like acceptance for Daenerys because you empathize with her and you give her the chance to be redeemed, you should apply that to other people, like people who
this isn't so much empathy, especially from my position. It's just recognizing moral actions of characters.
Trying to establish her character.
Yeah, because I've like never watched the show pretty much. I've been lots of bits and pieces, so I'm just assessing this. These are actions that are taken, and I'm within the context that I understand, evaluating whether they're moral or not.
Morality again, subjective, but like I agree that like this is character establishment.
Not really a counter to anything that I've said though.
But what I'm talking about is
if we all agree on the morality of it, it doesn't matter if it's subjective.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can all agree on the morality.
All right.
But what I'm saying is that Daenerys also should look at the morality of it, look at where she has been and what she has done and how she has changed, and allow other people to make those changes. But she doesn't always do that.
So I guess the question here is, how does she go from the scenario that's been described to me, from that to what happened at King's Landing? Like what happened to completely flip her around?
What do you mean? What happened? Like,
well, people change for reasons. People don't randomly change. There's always a reason.
A lot of people close to her died. She got the sense that she was rejected by the Westerosi society, as seen as not the rightful queen, not valid.
But don't the people hate Cersei?
There's hardly any work done in that regard. Gary, what do you think about that in terms of showing the people of King's Landing reject Daenerys? How much work did they do for that?
Not much. A few minutes, maybe, if that. We had Varys. A lot of that was done through Varys, who was backing her, and then what was it, third or fourth episode? Just like, oh, I don't like her anymore. I like Jon.
They did a lot of work on that in the North.
Yeah.
Not really. They had them give her a lot of stays, but then they showed that they were actually being won over to a degree when she'd won the war for them.
And we're talking about King's Landing. I mean,
people in King's Landing don't even like Jon. They don't even know who he is.
No. North stuff, I didn't buy it either. A couple of dirty looks, and that justifies killing 1 million people in a city.
Do you at least agree that like there's so much work that needs to be done to establish these things instead of just a couple of looks?
In this particular case, not really, no. There's a sense, like in the North, first of all, I don't think it was just...
Because that seems like...
I mean, it wasn't just a couple of looks. It was the looks, and then Sansa, and then the looks given to... There's just like a sense that like Daenerys was unwelcome. And then like moving on from that, like the way Cersei basically turns people against Daenerys. We should see some of that in season 7, some of that in season 8. Like, yeah, people should really hate Cersei, but if there's anything that could make people just be distracted from their hatred of Cersei, it's saying that Dragon Lady with a bunch of Dothraki and a bunch of slave soldiers that they're super foreign, are going to come in and they're going to slaughter everyone. Like, saying that...
She proved Cersei right, didn't she?
She did. I'm saying that that's going to turn people
I'm
those
saying
warnings.
it was an utterly ridiculous decision that sacrifices every last piece of dignity that character had.
Which character?
And
Daenerys.
they were
I don't
trying
know.
to they were trying to sell that what in Winterfell. So people were rejecting her in Winterfell. Well, Winterfell is completely different from King's Landing. People from Winterfell don't generally like people from the South at all. And maybe Daenerys doesn't understand that, but again, that is an assumption. A lot of this is rationalizing an assumption. It was not portrayed well within the story. And we're talking 6 episodes in season 8. That's what we're discussing, is these 6 episodes. And Daenerys' turn happened in the last episode and a half. Generally, we can say, oh, she smirked here, she smirked there. Nobody bought it. Again,
But
the closest thing to a general consensus I've seen is, and
Olivia Clark didn't buy it.
Yeah.
Does she know better than the writers?
Well, if we're taking actors, then Jaime Lannister bought his.
Well, we're not.
turn,
No.
so-
We're not saying she's an authority. It's an interesting piece of information, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, Jaime Lannister buying his ending is also an interesting piece of information.
He's
As
put
for
his
people
said.
buying
expectations, if anything.
As for
I don't
people
buy
buying
that he
it-
bought it.
So as for people buying it, I would say that a lot of people actually did see Daenerys' turn coming.
Yeah,
From, like,
me
a
and
mile
Wolf
away.
actually said when we first started watching the season, we hope this ends with Daenerys becoming the villain. It would make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
The way they executed
I
it was
used to-
horrifically bad.
I used to feel that way. Then I sort of changed my mind. I didn't want. And then, sort of at the end, I didn't buy it, and then I went back and I watched things
Wait, did I
over
say
and I
Olivia instead of
recontextualized it.
I said
And I did
Olivia
buy it.
instead of Amelia.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's all
what
right.
was that?
Scratch that.
Yeah,
Go
it's
back
alright.
in time. Fix that.
And
He said Amelia,
we-
100%.
We'll fix that in the final edit.
there you go.
Olivia
And-
Clark.
You have
Amelia
to know that they are contractually obligated not to talk cuss in your show about their own show, and they still did. So, and again, not that they're authorities, but I think that says a lot as well.
I don't know if
And
I don't know if anyone's really talking smack, but that aside, because actors, they are allowed to feel how they feel. We don't necessarily always agree with them, whether they like it or they didn't. When it comes to Daenerys, again, Nerdrotic, I think we sort of talked about this a little bit earlier. I disagree that whether people buy it is just based on rational, objective evidence. I think there is this sense that people want to say, "Oh no, I was just being rational. I looked at all the facts, and the facts don't add up to that." It's no. Most people watch shows with sort of they're rooting for someone. They want to believe a certain. Right?
It seems to be
A lot of
irrelevant
people,
to
they-
what we've been talking about.
What doesn't
Very
seem
relevant.
relevant?
Talking
Really?
about what certain fans out there think about certain things isn't really what we're talking about.
Well, I mean, Nerdrotic brought up whether people bought it, and I think that this is relevant to that. Whether people bought it, to me, is a lot more based on what people want to believe than what is objectively being shown.
Do you think that's the case?
Do I think that's the case?
Yeah. And how many
Absolutely.
people, if so? Would you say more or less than half?
90% or more.
90%.
Absolutely. You watch Daenerys, and again,
'Cause less than that
we've all acknowledged that Daenerys has done some messed up things, right? But a lot of people I swear I can show you guys subreddit that do not accept that Daenerys did anything wrong ever. They are 100%.
I can
Maybe
go
I'm
on
exaggerating a little
find
bit.
people
They were
who think anything.
so behind everything Daenerys does. They will make every single possible rationalization for every morally gray thing she did.
I'm sure
To
there's a
them,
guy out there
Daenerys
who
isn't
thinks
morally
everything
gray.
she did
Yeah,
was
I can
wrong.
find someone on Reddit who thinks Hitler did nothing wrong. So
Right. I'm saying that are they right? No, it's they're making those rationalizations. because they
I think that
believe
your
what they
attempt to show that they aren't right has been very lacking. The way that we distinguish
is
whether or not
that
they're
is
right
your
or not.
opinion, of course. But what
I
I'm
know
saying
it's my
is
opinion, but it seems to be backed up by everything I've heard.
like which things?
This whole discussion that we've been having.
So Daenerys forcing a guy whose father she killed to marry her is not tyrannical.
I never said that.
Well,
that's
we
a
have
big
to,
leap
like,
from okay, so yeah, killing 1 billion people after that's totally fine.
Let me do the
It's
same thing to
completely
you.
consistent with the character.
Jon Snow is
well,
morally reprehensible. He killed a child. Is that a fair statement without context?
So John could
No,
ride the
but, like,
dragon,
the
and John could be
context-
the one
again,
to burn King's
that's the thing.
Landing.
Like, context is rationale, right? Like John. First of all, John killing a child probably wasn't a good thing. But like, yes, of course, I would agree with you that context matters. But
what you've been telling Rags is she's forcing someone to marry her, and it's like, why was she doing that? Tell him that too.
Why was
did she
Joffrey-
force
why was
someone
Joffrey doing
to- No, tell me why Daenerys had someone marry her.
because she was trying to establish stability.
Okay. This
Why
does
did
not help your
Why did
argument.
Joffrey? Why did Cersei force Sansa to marry Joffrey
I don't know. Why did she do that?
to retain power?
So
Stability.
are these things comparable to Daenerys committing essentially a massive massacre?
I think that
Yes or no will suffice.
these things alone, no.
Okay.
But when you add up the resume, add up
Keep going then. Add up the resume. I'd like to hear it.
All right.
There's a difference between, by the way, trying to maintain peace and trying to consolidate power.
Yeah.
I agree
A
with
lot
that.
of the times maintaining peace can, it can absolutely...
Daenerys didn't want to marry him. She made that clear.
I-
She did it to try and get things rolling in terms of... Why did she open the fighting pits? That's a horrible thing to do. Well,
I agree with all of this.
because it's going to try and help seal the wounds that are between the two warring classes right now.
I agree with all of this, but with Daenerys, there's always like sort of a dual motivation. She wants to consolidate peace. She cares about, again, all of A Dance with Dragons is about this. Her conflict between the Misa, the mother persona, where she is the mother of all of these slave children, and the Mother of Dragons persona, where she is the conqueror, destroyer. She's torn between these two impulses, like kind of a Shakespearean character. And so there's always that element of maintaining peace, but also consolidating power. What, before there was any slave freeing, before anything, what did Daenerys want? The Iron Throne.
Was her conquering not just a means to an end?
Was her conquering a means to an end?
Yeah.
Which conquering? All of it?
Oh, we can pick and choose, I guess. I mean, did she ever conquer for the sake of conquering, or was it to service some other goal of hers? That was the only way that she felt she could.
What would you say is her goal?
Oh, no, I'm asking. It doesn't matter what the goal is in this context. In this question, it doesn't matter what her goal is. Her goal can be anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's about whether or not her conquering was just a means to carry out that goal. It was the only way that she saw to make it happen.
I think it's a bit of both. I think there is a part of her that actually enjoys conquest. I think it is in a lot of ways a means to an end, but that end is conquest. It's like at the end, what is it?
So
the Iron Throne.
So conquest is her goal. She wants conquest for its own sake.
Her goal is to claim the Iron Throne.
No, so is she just wants to be on the Iron Throne, or she sees being on the Iron Throne as a way to do something?
Originally, it was the Iron Throne itself. Then Break the Wheel came in, right? And Break the Wheel, what's interesting about it is it's like kind of a vague mantra that has some details. We get some inclinations of what it's about, but it really like reflects a lot of like a lot of historical like ideas that, once we conquer this, the people will be liberated, things will be better once I am in power. Like, it's sort of vague. It's the vague sense of like, I can make the world a better place, things will be better when I am in charge. But how much it's about actually making the world a better place and how much it's about asserting herself as a conqueror is really up to the viewer's interpretation. Like we have to wonder what is really
are there any
motivating
scenes that support it then? Are there any scenes or anything that support the idea that she just wants to rule for power's own sake?
What would that? I think I need more elaboration.
I would answer nothing explicit, and it's part of my issue that they missed that in season 8 when Jon addressed the fact that he's the rightful heir. That was their opportunity to explore her character and expose the fact that she wanted to rule regardless of her rightfulness or how suitable she is to rule regardless. But they don't.
Well, I guess the first thing I'd point out is what was she doing for the first 2 seasons? Like when Viserys dies and she's like trying to convince him to take the Iron Throne.
Yeah.
Why does she? Why?
Why?
Why does she want the Iron Throne?
Because her family were backstabbed and betrayed, and she wants to avenge them. Take back their seat of power that they created.
Sure, but isn't that power for power's sake, or is it vengeance? Are you saying it's vengeance?
No, vengeance is a motivation. Power is a means to obtain vengeance. If you don't have any power, you can't exercise vengeance.
She considers it right
true.
to be on the throne.
She considers it right. Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been saying. Yeah, she considers...
Initially, what she was doing was for survival.
Yeah, none of us disagree with the fact that she wants to be on the throne.
Right. Well, you're saying it was originally for survival. Was it? Before she tries to get Drogo to invade, before there's an assassination attempt. So it wasn't
season
really
1
about survival. Yeah, season 1. The first time she talks to Drogo about taking the Iron Throne is right after Viserys. This is true of the show and the books. It's about, you could say vengeance, you could say an assertion of self, you could say, I think those are like 2 ways to look at it, but this is before the survival comes.
Can you? Well, maybe this would be cleared up a little bit more for me. If you were going to say that, we're writing a documentary, there's this guy named Adolf, he goes from mild-mannered painter to genocidal leader of Germany, and you were going to tell this story, right? And it's all about him and his childhood until the very last, 10 minutes, where it's, him becoming Fuhrer and all that stuff, Holocaust things happen. Then I'd be curious to know, are there any scenes that have been established previous to that I can point back at and say, all right, this is, in this case, Daenerys clearly doing something that is violent for its own sake, that is for power for its own sake, where she is acting either irrational from her perspective, or anything that she does in its own context that would lend to the idea of the power and the Iron Throne and the massacre at King's Landing. These aren't the end goals, that these aren't means to an end, that these are indeed the end goals of what she wants. Are there any scenes that I could be directed to?
I'm sorry, I kind of got lost with Hitler and all that. I think Daenerys is comparable to Napoleon than a Hitler, and he did destroy.
That wasn't really the point.
That wasn't really the point. So my analogy still stands.
Whenever you bring up Hitler, there's a lot of associations people make.
I'm sorry if you're incapable of seeing past that, but the question is
I can. I'm gonna say the next things. It's okay. You're asking, are there scenes that would indicate that her goal is the Iron Throne and not some kind of other means to an end?
Yeah, point me to scenes that would make me think that prior to this, Daenerys is clearly trying to have power for its own sake. She's not working towards a goal. She is not working towards some other
that's not
idea
actually
that she thinks is
right.
Oh, so there are none of those scenes.
I mean, there is again, like I said, there's the scene where she tries to get Khal Drogo to invade before she's been attacked, before there's been anything. What's that about? You could say that that's about vengeance, and I would accept that as well. You could say that's about power. I would accept that. I think those are both valid rationales for things that she wants at that time. But if you're trying to say, does Daenerys not care about breaking the wheel? No, like I said before, Daenerys is like a Shakespearean tragic hero. She's torn between 2 desires. On the one hand, she wants to break the wheel. On the other hand, she wants to be the one that breaks. She wants it to be her. She wants the Iron Throne. Now in the books, it's more between Iron Throne and the desire to have a home. So the show does change it in that regard. They make her a little bit more politically minded than like personally minded.
Do you think it's interesting that your reference comes from, what is that, like season 1, episode 3?
I mean, I can. Would you like more references or something?
I was going to move on to a point to basically say that would you not agree that a lot of her motivation to strictly take the throne because take the throne comes directly from Viserys?
Like she was inspired by Viserys?
Like it's her, that's what she was born to do. And then as the seasons progress, she molds into exactly what her motivations are, which is to free the innocent people of the world from horrible tyrants. He even reestablishes that in season 8, which was so stupid of them to try.
I do agree, but I think like the molding, you're saying like, again, it's a thing where like a lot of people expect like these linear character arcs, and it's not really what this does. It's like
couldn't anyone do anything at that point?
Just go ahead and reference the scenes and stuff instead of talking about what other people expect and things.
Sure. Which scenes?
Anyone
that.
So like that one you used in season 1, let's go with anything beyond like a season 3.
I would say the scene in Vaes Dothrak where she goes back, or not, it's like outside of Vaes Dothrak, sorry, on the Dothraki Sea. She makes this huge speech for Khalasar, referencing Khal Drogo's big like rape pillage speech about how she wants to go to Westeros, tear down her enemies and their stone houses. I think that's a reference to it.
Well,
I think everything in
I was
like
asking
the
for
entirety
references
of
to
season
taking
2,
the throne for the sake of like a power, not her threatening to destroy houses.
To me, that is about power, right? Like she's going back.
Well, no, so her motivation in that scene is exactly the same as it's been for the past few seasons at that point, which is she wants to free the innocent people of the world, and she's got a tyrant in King's Landing right now called Cersei Lannister.
Well, Cersei Lannister is not the tyrant at that point.
Oh well, whatever, the Baratheons, whoever's in current.
Well, I mean, it's another piece of evidence that Daenerys's motivations aren't really about tyranny. Is that like she has the same motivations regardless of who's on the throne, whether it's Tommen, whether it's Cersei, whether it's Robert. So yeah, like there is that speech. There's also the entirety of season 2, right? Like that's before she has any free the slaves motivation at all. It's just about conquest. It's just about taking what she believes is hers.
When did you say that was established? Sorry, season 3.
No, when was the break the wheel stuff established?
When was her interest in protecting innocent people?
Well, I don't think it was never existed. I don't think she had any impulses to protect innocent people before season 3, right? She
had no impulse to protect innocent people before season 3.
No, I'm saying that's not the case.
Okay,
like,
okay.
She did like she saw Mary Mazdor. She had like, and the women being raped. She had empathy for that. In season 2, she does feel responsible for her little caravan of people.
Yep.
But I do think season 3 is where the liberation theology starts to develop.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. She starts seeing what's happening to people who are enslaved, like the Unsullied.
Absolutely.
She's disgusted with the rulers.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely true. Look, Daenerys is not always a bad person. Like, she's good in some cases, she's bad in others. I think the world is better off for Daenerys. I think that's the question you're supposed to ask yourself at the end of the story.
You think the world's better off with Daenerys?
For Daenerys, yeah, because all those people are free in Slaver's Bay.
Are we talking post the whole show?
I'm talking about the world of Westeros, right? Yeah, I do. I mean, like, yeah, all those, that's bad. But like, Also, she freed all of those
Dude.
slaves.
She freed millions of people of their lives
She
too.
freed their souls.
Yeah, King's Landing. Freed their souls.
That's interesting.
And that's
the slave cities are actually all bigger than King's Landing. Actually,
But
I'm
being
not. I know
freed-
Volantis.
Holy
is bigger.
shit, dude.
Volantis is bigger.
Okay, being freed and being killed, not quite on the same level. A living slave is.
Hundreds of thousands of people burned alive, but it's okay because she freed hundreds of thousands more?
Right. Again, this is like the kind of like simplification. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying that if you
But
take
you just said that the world's better off with her.
yes, better off than not. I think. Again, this is.
I mean,
like,
if we look at it pragmatically,
I'm saying like. Sorry.
if let's say
go on.
let's
have a
say
room full of string and cards with these rationalizations for Daenerys. I'm just imagining that in my head.
Again,
if we want to tally up, like so let's say that for every person she burned alive at King's Landing, there was a person she freed from slavery. Would that come out neutral?
Again, we don't know the numbers.
No, you don't have to know the numbers for this hypothetical.
So, right, you're saying that it's equal.
No, I'm asking you if you think it's equal. I haven't made a judgment.
I'm confused. Are you asking?
No,
are we
Let's get
saying-
again, right.
does this
I'll just read.
question
I'll just say it again.
presume-
It's quick. I'll say it again. It's quick. So let's say in King's Landing, she burns alive 10,000 people. Let's say before that she freed 10,000 slaves. Does she come out neutral?
Oof. I don't think. I think that's like a weird.
I can't believe this is happening.
Like, no. Yes. I don't know. Like that's like a weird. Like
It's a strange
philosophical
scenario.
question.
But it's a strange scenario, one that you've already evaluated.
In my mind, she did not kill 1 million people in King's Landing. That's not how I interpret.
How many
those
slaves
scenes.
did she free?
Probably a lot more than 1 million.
Think so? All right.
Yeah, I do. Part of this might be the books seeping in and my expectations for the books, but no, I do think that she, like again, I'm saying it's like a net positive. I'm not saying that anything she did in King's Landing was right, but also like, like she.
Well, is
also
it?
helped.
We could just change it. Let's say that she burns 10,000 people alive, but she saves 20,000 slaves. She converts them from living slaves to living free people.
I don't think any human being can do math with human lives in that way.
All right. Is it better to save one innocent person or two innocent people?
What?
Is it better to save one innocent person's life or 10 innocent people's lives?
I would say 10.
Hey, I thought you couldn't do math.
Again, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like come on, like I'm not going to say like, oh, would you kill 5 innocent people to free 20 innocent people? Like that's like a weird, like when it's that specific math, then it's weird and dehumanizing. Like,
well, because we're dealing with two ambiguous populations. So for the sake of finding out whether or not Daenerys was ultimately better, if we just say, all right, since we don't really know the actual numbers, let's say the numbers are they're both equal. Then what happens? Like, is the value of a person's life more valuable than a person's freedom?
I don't know. Like, that's not something that I think any one human being should decide for other people.
It's not deciding for other people. I'm just asking for your opinion.
Right. My opinion, I don't know.
Okay.
It depends on the conditions of the slave.
Didn't you know just now when you said that the world was better off?
Because, again, this is based on my interpretation of the narrative and what I see. I think there is a huge long-term net positive in King's Landing, or not, in Slaver's Bay, across multiple cities. And then there's an atrocity in King's Landing. So it's like, again, morally gray characters. Bad thing here, good thing here. Overall, I think probably she did more good than bad, but I don't know. I think this is the kind of question like individual people are supposed to wonder for themselves. Was Daenerys, like, was the world better off for Daenerys? Was it not?
Well,
personally, I think if I have to guess, I'm
vote
gonna say
hard
yes.
no. Gary, what do you
Hard
vote?
no.
No, I think the only question people were asking themselves after this were, where did my 8 years go? How
Not
can I
to
get them
mention
back?
that all the carnage that took place after she freed the slaves, not necessarily by her fault, but those people didn't stay freed in every case. Or healthy.
Which people?
The slave cities that were taken back while she was gone, that resulted well, didn't it?
Right. Well, but we presume that by
amount
the
of
end,
death that took place thanks to both the liberation and the retaking
that
of the
by the end they've been liberated. Like the bay is
I
renamed
want
the
to
Bay
get
of
off this
Dragons.
topic. I'm sorry. So the point was about Daenerys. Like, she's
Sure.
not committing
get back to whatever
murder
point.
to anyone who's innocent was the main point I was making. She only ever does it to an insane degree. It's way too off the map for her character, and it's why I would attribute the majority of fans in terms of character betrayals were upset. I've referenced this before. It's undeniable, 100% objective evidence that cannot be defeated. My dentist didn't like it.
I mean, your dentist didn't like it. My mom liked it. Whatever. Like, that's not.
A dentist outranks a
That's
mum.
not-
Everyone knows that's objective truth. God said
Yeah.
that in the
Oh
Bible.
yeah, good
He's
point.
practically
Well,
a doctor.
How do you know my mom isn't also a dentist?
Because you said my mum, you didn't say my dentist mum.
Maybe she's not my dentist. It's unethical.
you
to
wouldn't
go
trust
to
you wouldn't trust your own mother with your teeth?
You can't operate on your own children. Isn't that like
Sure
a
you
thing?
can.
No, it's like a law.
You-
Like
No,
doctors can't
I'm
operate
asking
on
you.
their own
This ain't about the law. This ain't about the law. It's about you.
My mom is a legally upstanding citizen, so
What if Daenerys came in and killed all the dentists in your town?
I wouldn't trust most legally upstanding citizens with my teeth.
that I don't want to see your teeth then.
What, you think I can
Yeah.
find a random person on the street and say, "All right, give me a get rid of my cavities or replace my tooth," and they'll do a good job?
All right. But yeah, so like with Daenerys, I think to me, it seems that whether people buy into her action or not, is directly proportional to who they thought she was before. And who they thought she was before varied a bit, but there had sort of been in the last couple of years sort of like a mass appeal, sort of like accepting that Daenerys is just a good guy. Daenerys just does good things, and she isn't capable of tyranny.
I've not spoken to
And
anybody
I
who
don't
talks about Game of
know-
Thrones that concludes
No,
that.
no.
Yeah. I'm sure
you know,
they're
a lot
out
of-
there somewhere. I'm sure if you take any audience for any show, you'll find some percentage of people who think anything about anything. But in all the stuff that I've seen, I've never found people who say that Daenerys is incapable of tyranny and she's incapable of bad stuff.
They exist. I don't know what to tell you
I don't
guys.
doubt they're out there somewhere.
I just think that you would be surprised how, because again, one of the like probably central questions to this debate is how much are people's opinions based on like rational objective proof, and how much are they based on feelings, like how
Where
we
do you
feel
think
about this
they-
character, whether we want to believe in this.
From
we
what
wanna
do you
believe in
think they
Daenerys or
develop
not.
those feelings?
What?
Well, from what do you think they develop those feelings?
Natural human psychology. You want to root for someone. You want to believe in someone. I think
Why
that's
don't people today root for Hitler?
because he was shitty all the time.
Okay. All right.
He was only
not
ever
all the
shitty.
time. He was not all the time. He was nice to his dog. The point is that there are things that
Dude,
he
fuck
does.
his dog. Like
No, his dog was innocent. Don't fuck his dog.
Hitler didn't free slaves. Like fuck that.
No, here's the point I'm trying to make is that there are reasons why we generally think of people the way that we do. The actions in this show, the scenes that they're in, the things that they do, the stuff that they say, the reaction to events. So even if people have an emotional opinion of this character, that's generally informed by something that they see.
Of course.
Like I
but
said,
that's-
there are reasons for pretty much everything. They're not necessarily rational, but there are
Again, but
reasons
that's
for everything that
the
people think.
point of the story. The point of the story is to get people to like sympathize with and root for Daenerys's like tyrannical behaviors until they're turned against the audience. So this idea that like, oh, well, people rooted for her, so that must mean they were right to root for her.
Well, no,
because people's
was there
feelings are
anything
always
that she
right.
had- No, was there anything
Um,
that she had done before this that was comparable to what she did at King's Landing?
in terms of scale or in terms of morality?
In both, they go hand in hand.
No, I think it's, well, yes and no. I think that scale, she's no, right? Because she's never.
So
burned
do
a
you
city.
think that if she had, let's say that the show had played out in a different way and Daenerys had done this, let's say in the last season, do you think that people would still be rooting for her now? If she had done this a season ago? If this is something that she committed?
You need to be more specific. I don't really understand that.
If Daenerys had committed the massacre at King's Landing last season, do you think they would have turned against her or kept rooting for her?
I think they would have turned against her, absolutely.
All right, so people's rooting for someone is very much influenced by the things that the character does.
Never.
So people see the
wouldn't
things
dream of disagreeing with Air.
Yeah, so apparently if people are rooting for her up to this point, then surely there's a reason for it.
Because she's tearing down evil system.
All right. What evil system was she tearing down with the massacre at King's Landing?
Slavery is an evil system, and she was tearing it down.
Where's the slavery in King's Landing? I'm not sure. This is a legit question because I don't understand.
Well, people have debated this, right? Like, there are some people who believe that Daenerys's campaign in Westeros is actually like a liberation campaign in which she sees the evil of feudalism and is trying to undermine it or undo it. That's not agreed upon by everyone, but that's a sentiment I've seen from a lot of people. Definitely in the books, like Tyrion likens the state of, like, he sees like slavery is just like slightly worse than feudalism or something like that. Like,
So-
not necessarily like with the Unsullied or whatever, but like,
So let's say in King's Landing, so I guess there was a feudalist system there.
yes, Game of Thrones does have feudalism.
All right. So in King's Landing specifically, I suppose, how does the actions that she take against the people cure that system that she finds tyrannical or oppressive?
It cements her rule.
You could not have done that in any other way.
How does that fix it, though?
Well, she tried to do that a different way in Marine.
Can I ask you an honest question right now? If episode 5 had played out that she flew over directly to the Red Keep, and we had a cheesy shot where she even looks through the balcony right at Cersei in the eye and then sends fire into the room, it like cycles through all the rooms, blows up all the top buildings, and she flies up and spits fire down until the entirety of the Red Keep is exploded. Bits of rock and fire hit some innocent people, they're screaming, and then the next episode plays out exactly the same. Would you have accepted that as believable?
Yes.
As would I.
There you go. I think I would have accepted that too.
Different.
That establishes power pretty well, burning down a castle with a dragon.
Well, I mean, yes, but like different things can be believable. Like,
I agree with that statement.
I think if I was a peasant in King's Landing and I was watching that, I would be pretty convinced.
Again, I should remind you guys that like I didn't believe it the first time around. I like rewatched it, reconsidered my perspective, and then came to believe. Like, it's not.
So we've established there are other ways that she could have done this that would be more in line with previous things she's done. Instead of total massacre.
Well, I don't know about. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know about more or less in line, but again, the place where I disagree there is I don't think that
if she had never committed massacres before, then not committing a massacre here would be in line with previous actions.
Sure, but by that logic.
I'm sorry, you broke up. Could you repeat that?
Sorry. By that logic, no one would ever do anything new. Right?
No.
Characters. Like,
no. You can do new things that are not necessarily contradictory to your own nature, essentially.
Well, first of all, again, like I said, a lot of these characters are hypocrites. Second of all, it is in her nature because we see every aspect of this play out in some way. Has Daenerys done crazy things?
Well, the issue isn't necessarily
has Daenerys tortured people.
We have not established she's done anything crazy. We've not established that.
I've heard rationales for why she's done.
You don't think the funeral pyre was crazy?
No, we've established that it wasn't crazy.
I did not establish that. No, she did not.
She determines the fire cannot kill her.
So
She
She
does
sees it as a
then-
ritual.
She doesn't determine. She is okay. So in the books,
Yes, of course
there's
she
the guy
determines.
Arion
No
Brightflame.
books. No books.
We don't have to talk about the books, but I'm just using as like an example. I might as well use something that's not even in A Song of Ice and Fire, but I'm using this because I know I tend to think about A Song of Ice and Fire. So in the books, there's a guy Arion. He drinks wildfire because he thinks like it won't kill him.
That's actually
he
in the
dies.
show.
Oh yeah, they do mention it, but it's in the show, it's in the books, whatever. He drinks wildfire. Crazy, right?
Not necessarily. Does he believe that he's
No, he
immune
has a
to it?
rationale.
Yeah, if he believes he's immune to it, that's not a crazy thing to do.
I would say believing that you're immune to fire is crazy.
Not at all. No,
Daenerys
if he
is
can
literally
rationalize
immune
it,
to
if he
fire.
believes it.
But she doesn't
Yeah.
know until she tries it.
And then when she confirms it, she carries on. She confirmed that it happened.
She
It's
set
not
up
a
the
crazy thing to
entire
do.
funeral pyre. She was like,
Okay.
I am immune
she's
to
getting
fire.
no-
Preparation for something
To
and its
ask you the
execution
same
are two
question we
different things.
Like,
asked
just-
when you presented this like an hour ago, if she was
Mhm.
burned hideously by the fire, do you think she would have continued to walk into the pyre?
She would have been physically unable to continue to walk in.
Congratulations, you
naturally
figured
Alright,
it
alright.
out.
Glad you agree.
No, but I'm saying that is crazy. Building a funeral pyre with the intent to walk into it is crazy.
No, it isn't if you believe that you're immune to the fire.
Which she
If you
tells
believe
Jorah
you're immune to
several
fire, you're
times.
crazy.
No, it
Well,
isn't,
she's-
but she is immune to fire. How is it crazy if she literally confirms
didn't-
it to be true?
But she didn't know.
she
Right?
she doesn't
just
have to know.
assumes
She
that
has to
because she has
believe.
dreams. That is crazy.
Whoa. It's more than just dreams. She doesn't get burned by the hot water and she doesn't get burned by scalding hot rock. She
Hot
believes
water.
you cannot burn the dragon.
That's that's also.
Are you
more-
arguing that
She
every
act-
religious person is insane then?
I believe any religious person that does like an. I'm trying to come up with an insane example.
Not
I
gonna
think
like the
that-
road you're heading down here. You can't do this.
What road? I'm fine with this. Like
I'm
I
enamored.
think that I don't know. Like if you, what's a crazy thing of? Never mind. I don't want to insult anyone's religion.
No, go for it, man. I'm enamored.
No, I really don't. I don't know what like any. I guess I'll just use this as an example. Like anyone who like decides like, you know what, I think I'm immune to fire. I'm gonna like walk into fire and I'm gonna be fine. I think that's crazy.
What
Has this person been immune to being burned previously?
Not from fire.
But
From
from
anything,
extremely
from-
hot things.
From extremely hot things. Yeah, sure.
Interesting. So
Hmm.
is this a world where magic exists?
It is.
Interesting.
But again, no Targaryens
That was
have been
established.
immune- no Targaryens have been immune to fire in this world, right? And in the books, Daenerys isn't immune to fire. She's never.
It's the mantra that keeps
again, you
getting
guys said no
repeated.
book.
Fire cannot burn a dragon. A Targaryen is a dragon.
Sure, but it's like a metaphor. There are Targaryens that
She
have burned
takes it
alive,
literally. That is a part of her
which is
character.
crazy.
That's not crazy.
Taking that shit literally is crazy.
No, she
There's
hears
also-
something. No, accepting it at its word, arguably crazy. But there's more to it than that, from what I hear. Scalding
Again,
water
it's-
doesn't burn her. Hot rocks don't burn her.
Again, like
She has dragon blood or something. She's
but like
part dragon.
there's no Targaryen that's ever, I don't know, dragon blood is like a weird fan thing. So there's no Targaryen that is in the history of this story that has ever just walked into fire and not burned, right? And in the books, none of that setup stuff even happens. She's just crazy enough to walk in. She has dreams, and the dreams convince her that she won't burn if she goes into the fire. Like, this is a character that is like established as like being on the line, like on the lines. Like, is that crazy? Is that not crazy? So to see her do something that's like
Okay.
also on the line.
Do you have any other examples of her being crazy? And I'm not saying you don't, but if you didn't, all you have is something that you're desperately trying to interpret as crazy to justify her insane actions.
I think that feeding someone to your dragon is crazy.
You already established exactly why she did that, and it worked.
just the act of
I
feeding
think
someone
it's-
to the dragon.
But why did she do that?
trying to threaten and squash out the actual leader of the Sons of the Harpy.
Is that the only reason?
Why do I have to... So, as Rag said earlier, what action can a crazy person not do?
That it's contextual. It depends on the context. What
Yes.
I'm saying, like, what I'm trying to get across there is that trying to intimidate the son of the Harpy is the rationale. The real reason she does it is because she's angry about Barristan Selmy's death and wants to lash out against someone.
I want to ask you a question that's a bit more meta for a second. We can go back, but...
Love to. Yeah, I think we talked a lot about Daenerys. We can come back. But...
Hello, you just listened to a segment of the podcast Every Frame a Pause, or EFAP. Hosted by YouTubers Mauler, Rags, and Fringy, and joined by a cycling variety of guests across the internet, they critically analyze media with exhaustive detail while pausing at every single frame. Subscribe to the EFAP channel and catch new episodes on Saturdays, as well as catch their smaller videos reacting to the latest and not-so-greatest movies and TV shows throughout the week. You can also subscribe here to EFAP highlights for the latest shorts, clips, and supercuts, also uploaded throughout the week. Links to all the relevant channels can be found in the description section below, as well as links to their communities on Reddit and Discord. Thanks for watching.